I'm joined now by Arseny Yacenyuk, the former Prime Minister of Ukraine. Mr. Yacenyuk, thank you so much for talking to us tonight. Can I first of all ask about the confirmation that Vladimir Putin has given that he has indeed used an intercontinental ballistic missile against the town of Dnipro? What's the reaction?
Well, there were allegations that he has used ICBM, but you know that Americans, they have these special satellite warning systems, and I do believe that they were in full control whether he used ICBM or no. So, but actually, war criminal Vladimir Putin, he just recognized that he used an experimental missile. But can I go back to the questions you asked your former defense secretary? Because can I bring you another perspective? Because you asked actually two questions.
Please do. Please do.
The first one was whether you need any kind of deliberations on the use of Storm Shadow missiles in Ukraine. Let me give you my perspective. I'm just wondering the reason why actually the United Kingdom, our closest ally and friend, and the United States and France self-imposed restrictions on the missiles that have been delivered to Ukraine. It's up to the Ukrainian military. And it's up to the Ukrainians to define the legitimate military targets that could be struck and hit with missiles produced in the UK, in the US, or the rest of the world. Ukraine acts within the international law, not like Russians. And it means that it seems to me that we deliberately dragged ourselves into some kind of strange discussion that Russians misuse against us, that NATO or the UK is a part of the war which Russia actually waged against Ukraine. So my point is that there is no need to make inflicted wounds. It's up to the Ukrainian army, to the Ukrainian military to define the legitimate military targets, period. Yes, sir.
And very interestingly, Arseny, Grant Shapps also said there that actually these Storm Shadow missiles have been used quite a while ago. This is not new. They've been used before. Was that news to you? Were you surprised by that?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And that brings me to my second point. The war criminal Putin, he just aired a pre-recorded message as usual because he makes everything pre-recorded. He never goes live. And with the message that these kind of UK, US, and French decision escalated the conflict, it's a bluff and it's a nonsense. And I will tell you the reason why. And you actually answered this question. Ukraine already used these type of missiles a number of times. From the Ukrainian perspective and from the perspective of the international law, we hit Ukrainian legitimate military targets that are located on the Ukrainian territory, for example, in Crimea. But the thing is that as Ukraine struck the targets in Crimea, from the standpoint of the Russian president and from the standpoint of his constitution, as he legally annexed Crimea, this is the part of the Russian territory. So my narrative or the message I want to deliver... That's a very
interesting point. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Can I just turn the conversation briefly to what our Defence Secretary, John Healey, told the House of Commons today? He said that the situation on the front line is now more fragile than at any time since the war began. And he was clearly implying that Ukraine is having a very, very hard time indeed, and that the winter looks particularly bleak. What do you feel about that?
Here is the thing. 2 days ago, I briefly met your chief of defense, Admiral Radikin, in Berlin, at the sidelines of Berlin Security Conference. And, you know, I admired the guy because he was very vocal, actually, on BBC when he said that Russia already lost in casualties around 700,000 killed and wounded. So this is the war of attrition. Russia has staggering losses. Ukraine faces huge complications, and we are facing huge challenges. That's true. And Russia is making an incremental gains on the battlefield. But the thing is that, look, NATO and our Western allies, you guys represent 50% of the entire military might in this world. You represent percent of the entire GDP might or economy might in this world. Whether we can prevail or we're gonna fail, we have to prevail. At this particular juncture, the situation is extremely complex. That's true. But the thing is that the situation in Russia is very difficult too. So we need just to undertake more efforts to be more decisive. Because Putin started the game. Who's going to blink the first? And it won't be us.
Absolutely. Who's going to blink first? Well, we will find out. Arseny, thank you very much indeed for talking to LBC tonight. It's been greatly appreciated.